Welcome to Monza. We are ready for race 2 of the weekend. It's round 5 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. The cars making their way to the grid in glorious sunshine. It has been a curious week here. A week ago when there were GT cars on track, we had lots of sunshine. Formula 3 turned up to test in the week. There was torrential rain. And then it comes to race weekend, and out comes the sun once more. And Monza bathed in sunshine for the weekend, for practice and qualifying on Friday, for a race and qualifying yesterday, and 2 races today, this being the race with a grid based on a driver's best qualifying time in Q2, the 3rd race with the grid based on their 2nd best time. And in the qualifying session yesterday afternoon, a number of drivers were deemed to have exceeded track limits, but there was a certain inconsistency in the way that things were being reported, and so the stewards decided the easiest way was just to ignore all of those reports and let the time stand and let the drivers fight it out over what will be 33 minutes plus 1 lap around this fantastic circuit. Yesterday's race was an absolute stormer. It was the perfect advert for Formula 3. There was lots of overtaking, there was lots of great racing, there was no safety car, which is pretty unusual at Monza, bearing in mind last year, the dramas last time out 2 years ago, and 2 years before that it was wet, and so that was safety car affected. But it was just a really fabulous race, and Lando Norris triumphed. We are looking forward to more of the same. Joel Eriksson will start from pole position. Now, at Silverstone for the first weekend, Joel was 4th in the first race. He was 4th yesterday. He won the 2nd. This is race 2. Is history going to repeat? We shall see. He will slot into place at the front in a moment. And then we have Lando Norris starting 2nd on the grid. 3rd is going to be where you find Mick Schumacher. And 4th will be Callum Ilott. But it is Motorpark from Carlin, then an all-Prema 2nd row, an all-Carlin 3rd row, an all-Prema 4th row, because you've got Ferdinand Hadsberg, Jake Dennis on row 3, row 4, Max Günther, and the Ferrari Driver Academy junior, Guan Yu Zhao, starting 8th. With then 9th and 10th, Jehan Daruvala, who was on the podium yesterday, the first Indian podium finisher, and Ose nearly won, in fact. Jehan Daruvala led the bulk of the race, but got mugged towards the end by Lando Norris. And then Ralph Aaron completes the top 10, the Estonian, for high-tech. So you've got Joel Eriksson making his way up towards the front of the grid, pole position driver. The Motorpark entered car of the Swede, who won the non-championship Masters race at Zandvoort last year. That was a bit of a breakthrough, because after that he was very, very competitive the rest of the season. Timo Rumpfkeil is the man that runs Motorpark. It's a fine team that's grown out of Formula Renault into Formula 3 and guiding Joel Eriksson to success this early part of the season. And he comes into this as the joint championship leader after yesterday's race. It's Joel Eriksson and Lando Norris, who are tied on 67 points apiece at the top of the championship standings, illustrating just how competitive the season is. Joel Eriksson with 2 fourths, a win and a 2nd. Lando Norris with 2 wins, a 3rd and a 9th. And Lando Norris, number 31 there for Carlin, double winner, because he won the first race yesterday. And as the British driver, who is new to Formula 3 this year, gets ready, he has certainly been mighty impressive so far. Last year he was the Formula Renault Euro Cup, Formula Renault NEC champion, and now graduating to Formula 3, having won the BRDC McLaren Autosport Young Driver of the Year award last season. 3rd on the grid is Mick Schumacher, moving up from the ADAC F4, the German Formula 4 Championship, into Formula 3 this year. He did do the MRF Challenge in the winter, like 1 or 2 others, Joey Mawson and the champion Harrison Newey, who's also on this grid, to gain experience of 2-litre slicks and wing single-seater racing cars. And Mick Schumacher has been getting better and better as the year goes on. Callum Ilott, another of the Prema drivers on the grid, the British driver who also had a win at Silverstone, but he retired from the first race. He comes into this now 3rd equal with Maxi Günther in the championship. Callum yesterday ended up with a hole in the nose of the car, because he just made contact with Jake Dennis in a rather heated battle early on, and that caused him to lose a bit of power and a bit of balance in the car. So he faded as the race wore on. Callum Ilott ending up 9th yesterday. But the quick Brit, one to watch, 3rd year of Formula 3. So many people's tip for the title this year. Ferdinand Hadsberg yesterday got himself onto the podium. He was 3rd in the Carlin Volkswagen engine Dallara, and it was his best result in the championship thus far. He's come into this from the Euro F3 Open Championship, but now into proper FIA spec cars, and he lines up on the 5th rank on the grid. 6th is where you find Jake Dennis, his Carlin teammate. There is Jake Dennis. And Jake not doing the whole season, He is doing selected races, and I think we'll do Pau and then Bale. Might come back later in the year, but his main programme is Blancpain GT racing this year, but he's here to help his teammates, and boy did he do that yesterday, because he rather got in the way of everybody else and let some of the other karting drivers escape up the road. There was talk that maybe he should have gone to collect the winning team's trophy afterwards. He did so much work for Carlin, but in the end, Jake yesterday came to take the checkered flag a little bit further down in 5th place, but he'd been right up there fighting for the race lead early on, but eventually dropped back behind his teammates. Then for 7th on the grid, you've got Maxi Günther for Prema in the car that is, in terms of points, jointly 3rd with his teammate Callum Eilert. And then, looking further back on the grid, we've got Guan Yu Zhao and then Jehan Daruvala lining up 9th. Jehan, who was very impressive yesterday, started from pole position, led the bulk of the race, and Jehan Daruvala, in the end, was caught by Lando Norris. The gap was coming down bit by bit, and as soon as Lando got into his toe, he just breezed up onto the back, and in the end, Jehan Daruvala 2nd. Number 7, Ralph Aaron, winner last year, the Estonian driver, mentored by former British champion Marco Asma. He will start 10th on the grid. 11th on the grid, Harrison Newey for Van Amersfoort Racing. Fritz Van Amersfoort's team's having a shocking weekend by its high standards. Harry Newey, the MRF Challenge champion. 2nd year in Formula 3, the son of Adrian Newey, of course, the legendary Formula 1 aerodynamicist. And Harry Newey with work to do to get himself into the points. Marino Sato comes next on the grid, another of the motor park drivers, but Marino Sato, who used to race in the Italian F4 Championship, so he's got some Monza pedigree in him. And Joey Mawson is the next man that you get to on the grid. Now, Joey, last year's German F4 champion, led but lost out in the MRF Challenge, and will be one to watch here to try and make progress. 34, Jake Hughes, back from a spell in GP3, but former BRDC F4 champion, the very first season of the MSV run, non-FIA F4 Championship. And then it is Nikita Mazepin on the grid for High Tech, and he's got his teammate Tadasuke Makino next on the grid. He will start 16th. They've got 19 cars in total. Makino is 16th on the grid. And then the drivers behind, largely, are those with penalties. So for 17th on the grid, there will be Kevin Suri, who had an engine change. In fairness, new to the championship this year, he's not yet been one of the faster drivers, so he was going to be probably round about this part of the grid anyway, but an engine change cost him. David Beckman will be 18th on the grid, and David Beckman also had an engine change, and he's a very frustrated driver as well. When he came into the championship last year for the Mirka Motorsport team, he was pretty quick, but he's not having a happy time at all at VAR. And then the grid is completed by Pedro Piquet, who is given a grid drop for causing a collision yesterday. And somebody else that's got a grid drop is Nikita Mazepin. He was deemed to have impeded 2 separate drivers in qualifying yesterday, so he's got 2 sets of 3-place grid drops, so he falls way down the order, does Mazepin. We've seen him already line up 15th on the grid. The grid is now being cleared. The format for the FIA Formula 3 European Championship, 33 minutes plus a lap. So 33 minutes, and then there's the regulation lap tagged on at the end. Yesterday, without any safety cars, that equated to 20 laps. The grid is now clearing because at the 1-minute ball, the engines fire up. Those last engineers make their way off the grid with the slave batteries. And the drivers will get 1 reconnaissance lap, with Joel Eriksson on pole position, Lando Norris lining up 2nd ahead of Mick Schumacher. Callum Eilert starts 4th ahead of Ferdinand Habsburg, and then 6th on the grid, Jake Dennis from Maxi Günther, Guan Yu Zhao, Jehan Daruvala and Ralph Aaron to round out the top 10. Harry Newey 11th, Marino Sato 12th from Joey Mawson and Jake Hughes, Nikita Mazepin 15th ahead of Tadasuke Makino, Kevin Suri, David Beckman and Pedro Piquet round out the 19-strong grid. Motor Park at the front, Van Amersfoort Racing at the back, with Prema and Carlin sandwiched in between them. We've got drivers from 11 nationalities in the championship this year. Quirkily, given where we are, no Italians. So the drivers about to be released then for the green flag lap. The cars accelerate away now. The race director waves them away. And a last opportunity to get some warmth into the Hankook tyres. One driver a bit slow away on that green flag lap, Harry Newey. And it is Joel Eriksson then who leads them around down towards the Variante Rettifilo, the first chicane. Now, in yesterday's race, it proved to be a typical Monza slipstreamer. If you can make a break, great. It's very hard so to do, and potentially you almost don't want to lead onto the last lap because you end up giving a tow to other people. We didn't have too much drama in track limits either yesterday. If people were going off the road, it was largely because they'd made mistakes and therefore were being penalised by themselves because they were losing places by going off the road. But the touring car stewards, because F3 this weekend runs alongside the FIA's European and World Touring Car Series. The touring car stewards particularly have been dishing out penalties aplenty for the European drivers. We'll see what happens with different collection of stewards for Formula 3 as the cars now work their way through the Lesmo Benz. It was here 2 years ago that driving standards became a talking point after the infamous Antonio Giovinazzi, Lance Stroll coming together, and races, even though all three were won by Felix Rosenqvist, that was rather overshadowed by the driving standards and races only being awarded half points because insufficient laps were done in the time, and it all got terribly messy. But this year, although the entry is a little bit less than when it was here 2 years ago, it is a very high quality field in terms of drivers and teams. We have lost a couple of teams along the way, but you've got really the top junior squads these days: Carlin, Prema, Motorpark, High Tech, Van Amersfoort. And you can see all the vigorous weaving, hand-cooked rubber for everybody. And they will make their way down towards the Parabolica. The regulation gives you 4 sets of tyres to run across qualifying. There are 2 qualifying sessions and 3 races. So how you divide those to try and keep fresh rubber for when it's most important is down to you. So sometimes you'll find a driver on 2 used and 2 brand new tyres for a race. Might start to get an idea of who's done what with the rubber when the lights go out. Formula 1 style, of course, so it'll be 5 red lights. And when those are all extinguished, we will go racing out of the Parabolica with the famous Monza banking from the Race of 2 Worlds in the background. And Joel Eriksson flicking the car, as also behind is Mick Schumacher, right and left, to try to get the warmth into the rubber. Lando Norris admitted at Silverstone he didn't make great starts. He admitted after his win yesterday in the press conference that he didn't make great starts yesterday either. So the pressure is on a little bit to get out of the blocks faster. But even so, the racecraft yesterday proved that he can still fight back very readily. The last few cars heading into position. That is the high-tech car of the Russian driver Nikita Mazepin, who will slot into 15th rank on the grid. The last driver is Pedro Piquet, double Brazilian Formula 3 champion, younger son, of course, of Nelson Piquet. And as the final cars are there, including the Corse cars and the Alfa Romeo 156 GTA Chase car, the lights go red. 5 of them will come on. Lights out, we're racing. Not a great start again by Lando Norris. Good stop by Joel Eriksson then, and also Mick Schumacher gets up alongside Norris on the run down towards the first chicane. Number 1 is Eriksson, he leads. Schumacher moves across and defends from Norris. Callum Ilott comes up to the outside line and Eriksson locks up, scrabbles into the Rettifilo, gets away with it. Do they all survive? Up the curb goes, by the look of it, Callum Ilott, and they sprint their way up now towards the Curva Grande for the first time. Joel Eriksson making good his escape. Great battle pack on here. Lando Norris in the mix and coming up round the outside in the all-blue Carlin car. Ferdinand Habsburg on a mission off the road. Goes Ferdinand Habsburg through the gravel back onto the tarmac. That was all a bit brutal, and that's cost him dear. He goes down the order as Ilott goes round the outside of Jake Dennis. Habsburg still in the mix then as they wriggle their way through the Variante della Roggia for the first time. And now up towards the first of the Lesmo Benz. Ilott under attack from Jake Dennis, number 21. Where do you look next? There's so much happening, except up front where Joel Eriksson is getting away. Head down, cold tyres, but he's trying to push and see if he can break that slipstream effect and start to build the advantage over the rest of them. There's a long queue, all for second backwards. Pedro Piquet's made good progress there, number 5, that from last on the grid, and he's still attacking as he comes up now towards the Variante Ascari for the first time. Joel Eriksson leading the way there, number 7, Ralph Aaron on the back of Guanyu Zhao. Sideways is Aaron as he tries to defend from Joey Mawson, the Australian driver. So Joel Eriksson leads the way. Mick Schumacher is second. 3rd, Lando Norris. 4th, Callum Ilott. 5th, Jake Dennis. And then in 6th place, Maximilian Gunter, number 3. Next in the queue, Jehan Daruvala. Joey Mawson comes through on the back of Ralph Aaron, runs wide. Not quite all 4 wheels over the white line, but that opens the door for Ferdinand Habsburg in the blue Carlin Dallara Volkswagen to get up the inside. Is that ideal? He really wants a toe and no one's giving it to him. Instead, he gives a toe to Pedro Piquet, who puts a couple of wheels over the white line. Dropping back in the pack is Ralph Aaron. Look, he's been mugged from all sides. Number 7, the high-tech car, so the beneficiary out of all of that is Joey Mawson. And also going strongly in number 11 in all of that is Tadasuke Makino. But the race leader, Joel Eriksson, leading by 1.2 seconds as there. Lando Norris fends off Callum Islet, the two of them running together. Joel Eriksson is the race leader, number 1. Mick Schumacher's second. And their third is Norris. Fourth on the outside line, Islet. Fifth in the blue car for Carlin, Jake Dennis, the corporate blue livery. And sixth behind him, Maxi Günther. Jehan Daruvala's seventh. Replay of Norris and Islet going through the first chicane. One the right way, one the wrong way. Callum Islet skips over the curb, not room for the pair of them. He gives the place back to Lando Norris then, who is now through into third place. But the top two escaping up the road. And Jake Dennis getting a toe and on a mission, closing onto Islet, taking Günther with him there. So Lando Norris blasts his way down towards the Variante Ascari, chasing after Mick Schumacher there for Prema, for whom he drove in F4 in Germany last season. Mick started off when he came into F4 2 years back in the Van Amersfoort squad. Teammate to that man, Joey Mawson. Joey, last year's German champion. And now moving up to F3, and he was in the wars yesterday, got a drive-through, in fact, for an incident with his teammate, Pedro Piquet. Down to the Parabolica. Race leaders turn their way through. Lando Norris with this long line of cars behind him. Harry Newey there making progress, number 17. 8th at the start of the lap, and he's just gone 7th at the expense of Jehan Daruvala. Up towards the timing line, behind the pair of them is Guan Yu Zhao. And now Zhao, the Ferrari Driver Academy member, comes up, gets a toe. He's levelled with Force India Junior. Jehan Daruvala on the inside line, down to the chicane, but Daruvala out-drags him. He's getting a toe in turn there from the VAR car of Newey up the road, and as they break for the chicane, Daruvala on the outside line can't do it. He'll have to slot back in behind Newey, which he does. Joel Eriksson leading the way by 1.4 seconds, 2 laps in the book. The race leaders blasting their way out of the Curva Grande. There is an incident between Mick Schumacher and Callum Islet that has been noted, and there, Islet up the inside of Jake Dennis. Trying to hang on to his place, but Jake Dennis goes through round the outside line. So Callum Islet, a little bit like yesterday, is being mugged and dropping back. There's another one over the curb in the background. But the Schumacher-Islet incident between the two teammates, the race director says, has been noted. And so now it may well be passed to the stewards. They will have a look and see if anything needs to be done. And David Beckman's miserable weekend, nay, miserable season, continues with a pit stop. The next stop in a couple of weeks' time is going to be at Pau. 3 weeks' time. It might not be a surprise if Beckman were at another team. He's pretty disenchanted, I think, with what's going on at the moment, and not seeing the best out of David. He was very impressive at Pau 12 months ago when he debuted in the championship, but since this season, VAR having a pretty tough time. And it's not just David Beckman, in fairness. None of its drivers are really shining in the way you'd anticipate. All talented. So Lando Norris now has managed to escape from the pack, because with Jake Dennis having worked his way through to the front of it, he can now become the cork in the bottle and do what he needs to do for the team. It's Motorpark leading, it's Prema second, it's Carlin third. But if nobody can get past Jake Dennis and go after Lando Norris, Lando can concentrate now on trying to close on those ahead. And up the inside of Günther tries to go Harry Newey as they work their way down towards the Retafiglio chicane. He locks up, Callum Islet goes back ahead of him. There's another incident that has been noted, and it is Lando Norris and Callum Islet. Was that one at the chicane where Islet skipped over the curb? Potentially so. So Tamas Vatra, who's the race director, keeping an eye to all of this, and if anything needs looking at, it's then passed to the stewards as their Islet defends from Harry Newey. Encouraging this for Harry, and also for VAR, the car having far better pace than we've seen for the rest of the weekend. Harrison Newey had a spin, caused a red flag in Q1 on Friday afternoon and wasn't able to rejoin the session, so starting the first race absolutely flat last. Didn't actually, despite the benefits of slipstreaming around Monza, didn't actually get up through the field in the race, which was a surprise, but here he's going strongly. So too is Joey Mawson there, right on the tail now. Guan Yu Zhao gets a toe, dives to the outside line, works his way into the Variante Ascari, and he's got the job done even before they hit the braking zone. So one up then into 9th place, Joey Mawson. Something seemingly has been unlocked at VAR, because the cars are looking far, far better today than they did yesterday and on Friday. Up front, though, for Motor Park, Joel Eriksson trying to mirror what he did at Silverstone, 4th in race 1 and win race 2. He leads the way. Mawson back on the inside of Zhao. Into the parabolica they come. Guan Yu Zhao takes a tighter line. He'll be closer when they come off the parabolica. He might just get into the slipstream now. Yes, he does. Can he get a toe all the way down to the Variante del Retafilio, the first chicane, and then dive up the inside? Let's see. He's being dragged along. Mawson tries to defend the inside line, but Zhao powers past. Through he goes, takes the place. There's a big squeal of tyres up the road ahead. And Ralph Aron, former Italian F4 champion, is right up with them as well now. So Guan Yu Zhao goes back through, takes the place away from Joey Mawson. And a replay here of the squeal of tyres. And it was Callum Ilott going up the escape road. So Ilott gets it wrong, goes up the escape road, and there, look for second place. Mick Schumacher versus Lando Norris. The two of them absolutely together now. If they start squabbling, will that enable Eriksson to get away? Well, Norris has done the fastest lap of the race, and of course, some of the work done by getting a toe. He's on the tail of Schumacher now as they work their way out of the second of the Lesmo corners. Jake Dennis 4th, 5th it's Maxi Günther. Up into 6th place now, Harry Newey, ahead of Jehan Daruvala. And hustling on lower down the order after going into the gravel on the opening lap. Ferdinand Habsburg in 13th place. More dust settles. There is Habsburg, 62. In fact, he's gained further ground, I reckon, because Ralph Aron has fallen back in the pack this time. 99 Nikita Mazepin speeds up towards Variante Ascari. And there Ralph Aron works his way out of the chicane. Mazepin behind him, and then a really crossed up Joey Mawson, flinging the car around. Second and third together, Schumacher versus Norris. Mick Schumacher powering his way out of the parabolica. Over the timing line he will come now. And there is Joey Mawson with a punctured tyre. That's why he was sideways at the Variante Ascari, because the tyre was going down. It's gone bang, and so Mawson's heading for the pit lane, and he will give up 9th place. Leader through, second and third together. Does Lando Norris dive to the inside? He thought about it, thinks better of it. Look behind them for 4th. Jake Dennis versus Maxi Günther, no change. The next little battle pack, in the midst of all of which is Daruvala, and he's trying to find a way past Newey to no avail. Now, why has that tyre gone bang for Joey Mawson? Has he run over something, or is this now going to become an issue? The Hankook engineers will want to have a look. Well, that was the big slide. Oh, yes, in slow motion, you can see it coming off the rim, can't you? So it had gone down, the air was coming out of it. Big slide through the chicane. The tyre goes bang, and Joey Mawson off the road and through the gravel at the parabolica. This for second. Norris on the inside, easy through on the inside, gets ahead of Schumacher. There was plenty of room given to him, and Lando Norris goes up into second place. And the way that he went yesterday, do not rule him out of being the race winner here. He's got the time left to do it. It all started at the Variante della Roggia, where Schumacher locked up, scrabbled through the corner, but didn't have the momentum coming out the other side, and so that gave Lando Norris the run. The incident between Norris and Ilott from earlier, no further action, is confirmed on the timing screen that we see, that the teams will see. There, number 33 pushing on Marino Sarto, up alongside Kevin Andrew Suri on the run up towards the Variante Ascari. Suri is 47 on the inside, and he hangs on to the place. Tucked up behind them is Jake Hughes, the British driver, who's in 17th place. As there, Jehan Daruvala gets up past Callum Ilott, so it's a place gained, a place lost for Callum on that lap. He was ahead of Daruvala, he falls back in the pack, and Guan Yu Zhao, his teammate, comes up to have a go at him as well. But Callum Ilott, a bit of a frustrating weekend this, in both races thus far. He's lost place after place. He fights back, gets the run on Daruvala down towards the first chicane, and does go back ahead, and Guan Yu Zhao tries to follow through on the inside line. He can't do it. That's Daruvala missing out the chicane. He skips over the curb, he's back on the road, and Ilott will take the place back. We're on lap 7, 22 minutes plus a lap to go. Guan Yu Zhao up around the outside of Jehan Daruvala. All of this is for 7th, 8th and 9th. Up the road, Maxi Günther ahead of Jake Dennis, setting off in pursuit of Mick Schumacher now. Maxi Günther, 3rd year in the championship, and that off the road is Pedro Piquet. Now, can he get going from there? And if not, is it going to be coverable through waved yellows, or would we need a safety car to hoik the car out of the way? We will see. And there is a yellow flag in sector 1. There at the chicane is Piquet. Snatch vehicle is already there. They're going to hopefully be able to move that before the leaders come through and not have to have a safety car, which would of course cost Joel Eriksson severely. He's got a 3-second advantage over Lando Norris, but the safety car would absolutely ruin that for him. The gap to monitor, first to second, 3.2 seconds. Now that Norris is ahead of Schumacher, what can he do about the race leader? Fourth, it is Maxi Günther. Fifth, Jake Dennis. And then sixth now, as they work their way down towards the right-hander of the Parabolica, Harry Newey at the start of the lap had that place from Daruvula, Eilert, Zhao, but Piquet 10th, no more. Piquet's car is out of the way, we understand, so Sector 1 has gone green again. In other words, the drivers aren't impeded, they can overtake, they can continue to push. Fastest lap of the race, by the way, done just now by Callum Eilert, possibly with a tow, but even so, Callum Eilert getting himself back into the mix against Harry Newey for 6th place. That's Habsburg round the outside of Daruvula. Third yesterday, Habsburg. Second yesterday, Daruvula. Today they're fighting over 9th place. Battle at Motor Park as well. Marino Sato up to 14th at the expense of his teammate Kevin Suri. And there for 9th, Daruvula trying to fight back. Jan Daruvula versus Ferdinand Habsburg, the Austrian, back ahead of him. And also now we're getting Daruvula being warned about track limits. So no penalty, just a finger wag for the moment. But if he carries on, having had the warning, then he will be in strife. Through Lesmo 1, they come short straight. Lesmo 2. And Habsburg setting off in pursuit of Guan Yu Zhao, isn't he now? He's actually getting away from Jan Daruvula as they blast their way down to the Variante Ascari. Nikita Mazepin there, number 99, out of the points for High Tech as the race leader on his own, Joel Eriksson. Now in Sector 1, Norris quicker. In Sector 2, Eriksson quicker. We'll see what the gap is at the end of the lap. 3.2 was the starting point. Mick Schumacher still there in 3rd place, trying to stay with Norris, and if he's in the tow, might be able to fight back. In 4th is Maxi Günther, behind 5th there Jake Dennis, and 6th right on his tail is Harry Newey, having his best race of the season thus far. Seemingly he's got good pace here, and he's going with that leading group. He comes out of the Parabolica, and one more place might yet be gained. He had a 6th at Silverstone, but here he's got the potential to gain further ground. He goes to the outside of Jake Dennis. The Carlin entry gives a tow to the VAR car. Newey is ahead, he then moves across, tries to defend. Is he going to get it slowed down in time for the first chicane? Yes, he is. And Jake Dennis actually goes in a bit deep and compromises his own exit. He's got Eilert and Zhao right up behind him there. So Harry Newey up into 5th place now. Best we've seen of him all season. And straight away, he escapes. And let's see what he can do about the traffic up the road. Jake Dennis doesn't know which way to defend. Zhao one side, Callum Eilert the other. In the end, he manages to swat both aside, but it's Callum Eilert on his tail coming out of the chicane at the Variante della Roggia. And Eilert again looking quicker than Jake Dennis, so can he find a way by? Jake is, to make the point once more, not doing a full season, but here to help his Carlin teammates, both in terms of points and also driver coaching in the early part of the season. Blancpain GT is his main focus really this year. He was here a week ago driving an Audi. And that in turn actually got the team in a bit of hot water with the stewards because you're not allowed to race at a venue in this championship within 30 days. Well, he'd already signed his Blancpain programme long before Carlin said, can you come and do a few races? So he was inevitably going to break that, and therefore it was a monetary fine to the team because the Blancpain event was, of course, part of his main programme for the season. So what can you do? There, number 3, Maxi Günther, losing out to Harry Newey round the outside. So Harry Newey up into 4th place. Both of them run way wide at the Parabolica. But Harry Newey has done it. He's got the place and he's made it stick. Is Fritz van Amersfoort affording himself a little smile yet? Because finally his cars are showing good speed over the timing line. Dead set level they come. Newey on the inside, Günther on the outside line. And Maxi Günther goes ahead as in the background. Eilert's lost out to Jake Dennis once again. So Maxi Günther retakes his place and Jake Dennis gets back up into 6th now as well. While all that's going on, the lead gap is still 3.2 seconds. Although last time Lando Norris was fractionally quicker, he's not brought the gap down sufficiently as yet to think about being able to make a move. 16 minutes to go as Günther and Newey arrive at the Variante della Roggia nose to tail. And Newey now tries to squirt up the inside, coming into the first of the Lesmos. Has he done it? No, because elbows out. Maxi Günther defends. The fastest lap of the race last time, and again, thanks to a tow, Ferdinand Habsburg. But look, he's at the rear of this group, closing on Guan Yu Zhao. Habsburg is showing really good pace, really good racecraft this weekend. Looked after by Jamie Campbell-Walter, former single-seater star, but out of GT racing was where Jamie made his name by winning the majority of his championships. He was a star in TVR Tuscans before going into FIA GT with the Lister team, and then into sports prototypes for creation, and had a spell with Aston Martin, with Jamie giving all of his advice to Ferdinand Habsburg, and it's coming into play. Despite the trip through the gravel early in the race, he has fought back well. Now, driving standards flag, this time around for Jehan Daruvala. He's had a warning about track limits, now he's got the driving standards flag. He's heading down a slippery slope, isn't he, if it carries on. Habsburg, the next one to watch potentially at the back of this little group to see what he can do about the Chinese driver Guan Yu Zhao. Through they come together, and Habsburg is closing as he gets into the slipstream, into the draft. Down to the first chicane they come. Jake Dennis goes defensive. Newey tries to get up the inside. There's a lock-up from Newey. And Habsburg couldn't quite make the move against Zhao in the background either. 15 minutes plus a lap still to go. That's the replay of the Newey lock-up as they break for the right and then the left. Meantime, second and third, 11 tenths apart, Norris to Schumacher. The lead gap is still 3.1 seconds, so Lando Norris actually not being able to bring it down quite as readily as he got close to teammate Jehan Daruvala yesterday. Ferdinand Habsburg, in the meantime, still pushing on. Callum Island on the tail of Jake Dennis a little bit further up the road. There they are, renewing yesterday's scrap. And number 3, Maxi Gunter, who for this race started 7th on the grid, running 4th, keeping Harry Newey at bay. They've been trading the place, but for now it is the German driver Maximilian Gunter that's there, and if he wants to it for all he is worth. Maxi Gunter, runner-up in the championship last year, so now that he's with Prema, widely regarded as one of, if not the top teams, arguably it ought to be his season. If he doesn't win it this year, questions might well be asked. Two nervous faces in the Prema garage as the leaders work their way now through the Parabolica. Lando Norris still chasing on in pursuit of Joel Eriksson. And there, look, Callum Island having to defend because right with him, Guan Yu Zhao, but Callum Island has the place as he turns his way through the corner. And now up towards the timing line. Unlike yesterday, the pack has broken up a little bit further up the road, so it's not quite as frantic as yesterday's race, but even so, we've had a lot happening so far, and a lot can still happen as Islet tries to get himself onto the back of Dennis. Ferdinand Habsburg closing on Zhao. And Jehan Daruvala is the last driver in the points at the moment. As down they come to the chicane, all concertinaing up for 4th. Gunter, Newey and Dennis. And they do for 7th as well. Islet, Zhao and Habsburg. Up towards the right-hander of the Curva Grande they come. To the outside line goes Habsburg to try to take 8th away from Guan Yu Zhao. That's where he got fired off into the gravel earlier, remember? On the opening lap with a bit of wheel banging, but this time Habsburg has done it all the way around the outside. Good racing from both of them. Zhao gave him racing room. Habsburg on the outside made a very good run there. There's more dust settling because Jake Dennis, Harry Newey were busy squabbling coming out of that second chicane. Ralph Aaron has done the best of anybody in the first sector. He's 11th, trying to play catch-up. But again, so much of this is down to a tow. Number 3, Maxi Gunter, getting away a little bit now from Newey, who is having to defend from Jake Dennis once again. Ferdinand Habsburg there, setting off in a vigorous pursuit of the man ahead of him, which is now Callum Island. What, if anything, can be done about him? So 12 minutes on the clock. As there, side by side, Dennis comes back at Newey on the outside into the Parabolica. He can't do it, but can he get a tow and make a move heading down towards the first chicane? What's been happening is that people get the place in a straight line thanks to a tow and then lose out again because they give a tow for the remainder of the straight down to the braking zone. Dennis ahead, Islet gets a tow off Newey, who tries to defend. Jake Dennis swings across in front of Callum Islet. That gives Newey the outside line. Jake Dennis trying to defend from 2 at once and succeeds. There's a little brush between him and Harry Newey, and that just ever so slightly affected the nose cone of Harry Newey's car. Callum Islet almost into the back of him, and here comes Ferdinand Habsburg up on the outside in the second of the blue Carlin Delaras. He's got past Eilert. Can he go all the way around the outside of Newey? Yes, he can. And Newey has got a problem, look, because of the damage. Harry Newey's great race is about to come to an end, I fear. It looks like the nose cone is dragging either on the ground or against the tyre or both as up the escape road he goes, and he wasn't the only one either. It was Jake Dennis, the other, that's gone off the road, so he's penalised himself. He's fallen way back in the pack, and I wonder whether he has also suffered damage. He might have a slow puncture, of course, after that little touch with the nose cone, and that is potentially why Jake Dennis ended up going up the escape road. So let's have a look. Both of them now fallen out of the equation. Big shame for Harry Newey. It matters arguably less for Jake Dennis because he's not doing the whole championship season, but it shuffled the order, and the big winner this lap round is Ferdinand Habsburg. Meanwhile, back at the front, remember the lead gap was 3.2 seconds, it's down to 2.6. So with 10 minutes and a lap, Lando Norris is getting closer to the leader, Joel Eriksson. There is Habsburg heading into the Parabolica. Behind him, Callum Eilert on the inside, losing out to his teammate Guan Yu Zhao, who goes through. So at the end of the lap, Joel Eriksson leads, Lando Norris second, the gap 2.5 seconds. There in splendid isolation up front with nobody around him is Joel Eriksson. It's Mick Schumacher third, it's Maxi Günther fourth. Then Habsburg is now fifth, yes really. Sixth is Guan Yu Zhao, seventh is Callum Eilert, eighth is Jehan de Reuvelot. In ninth place it's Ralph Aaron and Nikita Mazepin in 10th place. For now, take a deep breath because the next run up to the Curva Grande beckons. Jehan de Reuvelot, 8th. It was 10th, wasn't it, a lap ago? But of course, with the dramas for both Jake Dennis and also Harrison Newey, he gains 2 places back. Harry Newey has pitted with the nose cone damage, and I think it may well have been a deflating tyre for Jake Dennis with that contact that he had at the back. Eilert to the inside of de Reuvelot. Into the braking zone they come, but de Reuvelot on the outside line goes ahead of him, takes the place and secures it as well up towards the first of the 2 Lesmos. Behind them is Ralph Aaron, who's been yo-yoing his way up and down the order, and he's back up again and he's in the points this time around. So Jehan de Reuvelot, who led the bulk of yesterday's race, gets himself up past now Callum Eilert, charges off towards the Variante Ascari once more. The lead gap is coming down because 2/10 are pulled back in the opening sector by Lando Norris on this lap. So the Brit closing on the Swede, Joel Eriksson up front. And neither, as far as I can see, Harry Newey nor Jake Dennis have rejoined the race. Now there are the 2 leaders, and you can see the gap is coming down discernibly now between the 2. So Joel Eriksson may have to start thinking about defending before too much of this race is done. 8.5 minutes plus a lap. Down they come into the braking zone once again. There, Jehan de Reuvelot has got tucked up behind him, Callum Eilert, but de Reuvelot works his way round the Parabolica. And a sideways Eilert tries to stay with him. And then there's Ralph Aaron, who had a win last year in this championship when he drove for Prema, accelerating his way up over the timing line now. Through they come. Race leader is Joel Eriksson, was ever thus. And the gap is down again to 2.2 seconds as de Reuvelot and Eilert arrive absolutely together for 7th. Jehan de Reuvelot hangs on to the place, but this for the championship is not good news for Callum Eilert. He is giving away points here. 8th gives you 3, not good. So as he works his way out now of the Curva Grande, he needs to try and gain ground back if he can. Side by side they run. Callum Eilert on the outside, a lock up from de Reuvelot. They scramble their way now up towards the first of the 2 Lesmos. Turning their way up towards the end now of lap 15. Jehan de Reuvelot keeps the place, at least for the moment. Callum Eilert tucks up behind him, trying to work out where he's going to be able to make the move. Nikita Mazepin now being warned about track limits as well. So the race leaders work their way out of the Variante Ascari. There, Callum Eilert still mired in 8th place, doing his best to get onto terms and find a way past the man ahead of him, which is Jehan de Reuvelot. In the meantime, though, we've got Joey Mawson after his puncture going through. Tell you a lie, 8th place for Eilert is 4 points, not 3, apologies. So he still needs to try and make progress for the championship if he can. Over the timing line goes Joel Eriksson, and the gap is down to 2 seconds now. 2 seconds to make up in 6.5 minutes and a lap. And yesterday, in the podium waiting room, we could overhear the drivers saying that when they got to about 2 seconds, that's when the tow really started to help. So now Lando Norris might well be able to charge up onto the tail of the leader. 27th there is James Deruvala, still keeping Callum Island at bay. And despite all the slipstreaming, I think that's about the one lap we've had where there's not been a change of place. The next track limit warning is going the way of Maxi Günther, running in 4th place, chasing after Mick Schumacher. The race leaders, for the 16th time, head out of the Variante della Roggia. There is the Deruvala versus Island battle. We're on lap 16, 20 is the target, and a replay of Joey Mawson getting it sideways and off through the gravel at the first of the Lesmos. Big dramatic slide way out through the gravel. Does he demolish the boards? No, slaloms his way between them. Even though he's got a Mercedes engine, he keeps all the Honda banners in the right place. Island still hunting down Deruvala, who's kind of got his second wind a little bit here, because as the race has worn on, even though he's been dropping, he's now fought back, gaining places. And again, the one with the real head scratching surely is Callum Island, because he's fallen away from 4th on the grid. Joel Eriksson still leads the way. Now, is it going to be a similar situation to yesterday? It was Deruvala who dominated the first 3 quarters, really, and then lost out at the very end to Lando Norris. Is the same thing going to happen to Joel Eriksson today? Joel Eriksson goes through, and the gap is down to 1.6 between the leaders. Further down the order there is 34, which is Jake Hughes, keeping at bay 11, Terasuki Makino, and then behind him you've got Kevin Suri. So all of this is 13th, 14th, and 15th. As for 4th place, Günther defends from Habsburg, diving down to the chicane. Through they turn on to lap 17. Clock ticking down all the while. Joel Eriksson is being caught, no question about it, by Lando Norris. And the tow is helping. We'll see what happens in the first sector. It's down by 3/10. This battle is for 4th. Remember, Maxi Günther versus Ferdinand Habsburg, Prema versus Carlin, Mercedes versus Volkswagen. Although everybody has the same chassis these days, of course, it's different teams, different engines. Callum Island up ahead of Deruvala, so 7th has changed. Can he hang on to it? Callum Island gains 2 more points. Deruvala tries to prise open the door on the inside at the first of the Lesmo corners, can't do it. And actually cost himself a couple of lengths into the clutches of Ralph Aaron, the Estonian, who tries to find a way up on the inside. They blast their way through the Curva del Saraglio and now to the Variante Ascari, where the battle is on for 8th between Deruvala there and Ralph Aaron, number 7 in the high-tech Grand Prix entry, Mercedes powered. And there Ferdinand Habsburg has not given up in his quest for 4th place against Maximilian Günther. Günther, who raced for Mucker, switched to Prema, comes up across the line. He's hanging on to that spot. The gap between the pair of them is shown as being 4/10ths of a second. And 55, David Beckman. I said before the race started he's having a miserable season. This race has just copped him a 20-second penalty for track limit abuse, as a big lock-up for Maxi Günther heralds his arrival to the first chicane. He hangs on to the place, 4th, but only just. The lead gap is down to 1.4 seconds. David Beckman was 15th, but with a 20-second penalty for track limit abuse, forget it. He'll be a very, very disconsolate driver. It's been an awful start to the season. Habsburg to the outside of Günther. Is that going to pay off for him? No! Over the curb, bounces back onto the track, slots back in behind, and Ferdinand Habsburg regroups and will have to try again. Oh, so close, but in the end he ran out of road, bounced over the curb. Let's have another look. Tried to go around the outside, ran out of road, bounces over the curb and penalises himself. The place goes back the way of Maxi Günther, who had that big lock-up in replay there going into the first chicane, and that little moment that they've just had at the Variante della Roggia has been noted, says the race director. So Habsburg tries again. Out of the Variante Ascari. So the race leaders, there they are, work their way through the Parabolica for the penultimate time. Is it going to be? No, they'll get 2 more laps out of this. The flying lap is a 1:44. So there is one more lap within the time, and then the regulation lap at the end. Can Lando Norris do it? The gap is 1 second, and Norris has just done the fastest lap of the race. Through they come together, onto lap number 19, into the first chicane. Joel Eriksson now must have this real sinking feeling. He has driven superbly, he's dominated the race, but now there's almost nothing he can do because Lando Norris will use the slipstream and just breeze up onto the tail of him. Eriksson is going to have to make that car as wide as he possibly can. And the danger is that he leads on the last lap and gives the toe to Norris, who nips past him, and then there's not time to fight back. The incident we saw, by the way, a lap ago between Habsburg and Gunter, at the Variante della Roggia, no action to be taken. Good, quite rightly. Norris goes wide. Does that give Eriksson a bit of breathing space? Only fractionally. They work their way now down once again towards the Curva del Seraglio, down to the Variante Ascari. Speed building all the time. Under the bridge, rise uphill, and then in front of the grandstand. It's a great place to watch from Monza. The cars flick their way through that chicane and blast their way down towards the Parabolica with, in sector 1, the gap down. In sector 2, the gap between the leaders creeping up slightly. And there'll be one more lap to run at the end of this. So Lando Norris, a second back, trying to do what he did yesterday, and that is carve his way into contention and then take the lead late in the race. He goes way, way wide, and so does Eriksson as well. Both of them absolutely on the ragged edge now, trying to squeeze everything out of the cars on this start of the last lap of the race as they go through. 19 laps in the book as we get a replay there of Ralph Aron going wide, so that gives Jan de Ruvela a clear ride. The race leaders now work their way down towards the Rettifilo for the last time. The gap, 7/10 of a second. Callum Islet has just set the fastest lap of the race as well, thanks to a tow potentially from Guan Yu Zhao. So, 2/3 of a lap remaining. Eriksson versus Norris. The gap is coming down and down and down and down, and there's nothing Eriksson can do about it. He's got to hope, really, that Lando Norris makes a mistake and delays himself. Now David Beckman, who's been given a 20-second penalty for track limits, is being investigated for track limits. That was the replay of a little bit of debris flying as Eriksson and Norris ran wide through the Parabolica. How do we look? There's a back marker up the road, which is Joey Mawson. There's the leader, number 1. Joel Eriksson looking for a second win of the year. Lando Norris has already had 2 wins. He's second. He's not yet close enough. Is he going to be able to get close enough come the end of this next straight to make a move through the Parabolica? Let's see. Joel Eriksson, it would be pretty cruel if he were to be robbed at the very line, but it could happen. Down they come then with the gap in sector 1 coming down in sector 2. It has gone up by 3/10. It could just be that Eriksson now has done enough. Checkered flag is being made ready at the end of round 5 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. They come into the Parabolica for the final time. The flag is ready, and Joel Eriksson for Motor Park has done enough, and he will win for the 2nd time this year. Joel Eriksson wins at Monza. Second across the timing line is Lando Norris. And for 3rd, some way back, is Mick Schumacher, who faded away. The Prema car's not really showing the same speed as the others over the course of the 2 races so far, so he's a distant 3rd. Gunter is 4th, Habsburg 5th, 6th, Guan Yu Zhao 7th, Callum Islet 8th, Jan de Ruvela. Ralph Aron should be 9th, waiting for him to cross the timing line. He is 9th, and then Nikita Mazepin through for 10th place, but Joel Eriksson, 7/10 of a second clear in the end. You've got to say he deserved that, the way that he has led the race from the off. Fair play to Lando Norris for bringing down that gap remorselessly, but in the end, it was all about that man. Joel Eriksson wins round 5. A pretty big crowd here at Monza in the sunshine, watching Stars of Tomorrow in Formula 3. Joel's brother Jimmy, in fact, was here a week ago in the HCP Mercedes. He drives this year in Blancpain GT. But Joel Eriksson, who was the runner-up to Marvin Dienst a couple of years ago in the German F4 Championship, has continued in single-seaters. Marvin's gravitated perhaps to GT cars. But Joel Eriksson takes his 2nd win of the year. Brother Jimmy got to GP2 before going the GT route. But the Swedish family, two very, very capable sons in Jimmy and Joel. Joel Eriksson it is who scores victory then, and worked his way, a happy man, through the second of the Lesbo curves. Going as slowly as possible to conserve as much fuel for the weight check. He'll go offline and get some pickup on the tyres as well, just turn to the weight of the car. And in the grandstands, the fans, certainly in the first chicane, have had drama, so too at the Variante della Roggia. And there is one more race still to come for the Formula 3 field, because the third race here at Monza comes up later this afternoon. And the drivers will grid with the second best qualifying time out of the session yesterday dictating the order. And it's going to be underway at 3:15 local time. So race 2 won by Joel Eriksson from Lando Norris second and Mick Schumacher third. Fourth goes the way of Maxi Günther, the head of Ferdinand Habsburg. Guan Yu Zhao sixth, the head of Callum Islet, and then Jan de Ruvela, Ralph Lauren and Nikita Mazepin round out the point scorers. Marino Sato is 11th, ahead of Kevin Suri and Jake Hughes. Tadasuke Makino 14th, David Beckman with penalties and investigations 15th, ahead of his teammate Joey Mawson, with the retirements being Harry Newey, Jake Dennis and Pedro Piquet. So Lando Norris, oh so close, but it is second place for him, 7/10 of a second adrift of the race winner Joel Eriksson. There is Mick Schumacher, who arrives for his third place. And Lando Norris, Mick Schumacher and Jan de Ruvela, the top three in the rookie competition as well, incidentally. So Jan de Ruvela's car, I think you can see in the background, has been held by the officials. As a very happy Joel Eriksson has so far mirrored what he did at Silverstone, fourth in race 1 and winning race 2. He was second in the third race in the UK. Is he going to be second place later on? We will see. Joel Eriksson then celebrates his second win of the season. Jumps off the car. And Timo Rumpfkeil's team has engineered a very competitive car for Joel Eriksson. And with all due deference to his teammates, the experience he has from last season standing him in good stead, he's a fair way up the grid in relation to his teammates, who are all still learning about the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. So he poses for the cameras. For the championship, Joel Eriksson now on 92 points to the 85 of Lando Norris, and Maxi Günther is third, with Callum Islet now falling back behind him fourth in the championship standings, with, of course, one more race to come here later on this afternoon. A fair spread of scorers. We've got 19 cars on the grid and 15 drivers scoring points across the 5 races thus far. So the drivers go from Parc Fermé up to the weight check, and as we await for them, let's have a look at some of the highlights of round 5 here at Monza. Podium now ready, and the drivers will be there very shortly. As I was saying a moment ago, they go from Parc Fermé through the weight check, and then once the officials have the drivers' weights, which are borne in mind to make sure that the cumulative weight of car and driver is not underneath the regulation amount, then they are released up to the podium, and confirmation on screen of the results. So Joel Eriksson, Lando Norris and Mick Schumacher, the 3 drivers that we need for the podium, and they'll be there in a moment. The second podium for the rookies, and that won by Lando Norris from Mick Schumacher. So the drivers are all ready, and in a moment, hopefully, will be called forward. There is Joel Eriksson. Cooling down. Lando Norris already seating. And having a look at the timing screen, there's Jan de Ruvela as the third of the rookie drivers. And as soon as the officials are happy and they've got everybody and they've got all the presenters and they've got all the trophies, then the celebrations can get underway. Drivers have to have the regulation hat to wear. And Britta McKenna, the media delegate for the championship, is in charge of hats by the look of it. She arrives to make sure that Jayan and Lando, as the Carlin teammates, have the Hankook cap ready to wear on the podium. And for Joel Eriksson, then a second victory of the season. And inevitably, all the lessons learnt last year coming into play now. It was at the Zandvoort Masters event where he won that and really made his breakthrough. You can argue that that's never the toughest entry to defeat, but he did drive very, very well that weekend and proved his ability for the rest of the season. Regulation patches on Mick Schumacher's overalls. Mick taking third, but second of the rookies. And the Decra decal is there for the former karter. Mick Betch he was when he came into karting, but now very much Mick Schumacher, as he was in F4. He continues under his family name in F3. So Joel Eriksson already out onto the top of the podium. Lando Norris, winner yesterday, second this morning, ventures out. And then for third place, Mick Schumacher will be called forward in a moment. At the end of round 5 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Motor Park represented on the podium as well, as we have Lando Norris, and Mick Schumacher now emerges to take his third step on the podium. So for the Swedish driver, the national anthem, and the German team, Motor Park, as now the presentations to be made. And Jean-Baptiste Pinton, the FIA's Chief Administrative Officer, steps forward to give the winning trophy to Joel Eriksson. Then to the winning team, it is David Fantoni, the sporting manager of the Automobile Club of Milano, who presents Motor Park with the team's trophy. Then second, Jean-Baptiste Pinton returns for Lando Norris, the British driver. But Joel Eriksson, of course, now puts himself into the lead of the championship with his second win of the season. And David Fantoni hands the third place trophy now to Mick Schumacher. So there we have the drivers all grouping together for the photograph of the top three and the team's representative. And all smiles. Now they step forward. The trophies remain in their hands as they pose at the front of the podium. There is the champagne to spray, but of course there's also another race later on for which they might need clean overalls. But a delighted Joel Eriksson sets about the team. Mick Schumacher sets about Lando, who scurries away. And Joel Eriksson revelling in all of this. That's no way to treat your team, is it? But Motor Park with the second win of the season for Joel Eriksson can celebrate in style. They will head to the press conference next and then get themselves ready for the third race of the weekend that comes up at 3:15 local time. The stewards, in the meantime, have still got some more investigation to do because there is Jake Dennis and Harry Newey's contact at the first chicane that is being looked at. But for Joel Eriksson, a great start to the day. A win. OK, the margin came down and down and down, but the win was the win. And 0.7 of a second in the end. It was, what, 3.6 at one stage, the margin, but it mattered not really. It's the win and the points that count, not the margin. And for Joel Eriksson, win number 2 of the season. Lando Norris, of course, remains a very impressive rookie. Bearing in mind he's up against Joel in his 2nd season. Lando moving from Formula Renault, in which he was the Euro Cup and NEC champion last year. And he's the top rookie in this race, so that means he's back on the podium and he's on the top step as well. Mick Schumacher to a great reception, takes 2nd, and then Jan de Ruvela will be 3rd. Now the Force India junior driver arrives on the podium now. A win for Lando Norris then in the rookie element of the race from Mick Schumacher and Jan de Ruvela. Carlin Prema Carlin being the teams represented. And now it will be Jean-Baptiste Pinton to give the winning rookie trophy to Lando Norris. Then for Mick Schumacher, David Fantoni, as the sporting manager of the Automobile Club of Milano, will step forward, and Jean-Baptiste Pinton will be back for 3rd place Jan de Ruvela, who is there at the far end of the podium. A little frustrated potentially, given how well he went yesterday, that only netted 8th overall, but 3rd in the rookies. And now he, Lando and Mick all get together on the top of the podium. 2 Formula Renault graduates and a Formula 4 graduate, and Lando Norris in no mood to spray the champagne. Mick Schumacher is a bit more playful, and Jan de Ruvela and Mick Schumacher head now to the press conference. Let's have a look back then at some of the highlights of the 2nd of the 3 races here this weekend. It all began with Joel Eriksson making a very good start, leading the pack as they worked their way through that first chicane, but plenty of great squabbles all the way through the order, including Ralph Ara, number 7, then diving up the inside as the cars turned their way through the first chicane. Callum Ilott and Lando Norris oh so nearly got themselves together. Ilott skipping the chicane. He then had to battle with Jake Dennis as well, and Dennis managed to find a way through. That put Ilott into the clutches of Maxi Gunter. Gunter in turn had to defend mid-race from Harry Newey. And Newey also battling as he came through the chicane with 53. Callum Ilott once more in the end. Damage would put Harry Newey out of the race though. Up front, Joel Eriksson continued to lead. The gap continued to come down though, as Lando Norris charged up into contention. Up the escape road went Callum Ilott, having outbraked himself at the first chicane. He worked his way back into contention though, as Lando Norris sorted out Mick Schumacher for 2nd place and then set off in pursuit of the race leader. As the cars blasted their way up over the timing line, they were back. Harry Newey was in the thick of the squabbles. He lost out to Maxi Gunter. Callum Ilott, meantime, was also scrapping hard with Jake Dennis, and a deflated tyre put Joey Mawson into the pit lane. First, though, put him into the gravel at the Parabolica. Jan de Ruvela was battling with Callum Ilott, trying to find a way through on the outside at the Variante della Roggia, which he did. Ilott then coming under attack from Ralph Aron. Ferdinand Habsburg was another man on a mission, having been through the gravel on the opening lap of the race. He managed to get himself up into 5th and nearly 4th, but he tripped over the curb and slotted back in behind Maxi Gunter. So, a 2nd victory of the season for Joel Eriksson. Lando Norris taking 2nd place and Mick Schumacher taking 3rd. And the final race here at Monza comes up just after 3 o'clock local time. Join us for that if you can. For now, from David Addison, bye-bye.